I was blown away by how immediate the acceptance of this was. And I think everyone realised that, yeah, we are in this place where we're just doing such overly complicated things and we're achieving all these benefits by simplification.
Welcome to the Passive House podcast, brought to you by Passive House Accelerator, a catalyst for zero carbon building. For news, inspiration, and connections from all flavours of Passive House, check out passivehouseaccelerator.com. Sign up to receive regular updates about events, get your questions answered, and contribute to the community dialogue. There's loads of free information for experienced professionals and people just starting out on their Passive House journey. We hope to see you at one of our weekly Passive House Accelerator live webinars. In the meantime, here's this week's Passive House podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Passive House podcast. I'm Zach Semke, co-host of Passive House podcast, and we do not have Matthew Cutler-Welsh with us today because he is up on a mountain and is unable to record on that mountain. But we're very happy to have Mary James here, co-host with Passive House podcast, to join us today. How are you, Mary?
I'm great, clinging on to the last bits of summer, enjoying it.
Yeah. I feel that way too. It's actually a little warm right now, but I know that in a week when fall has started, which looks like it's going to be the case in Seattle, I will be pining away for the heat. We have a really great interview with Rashid of Barratt London that you conducted, Mary. Thanks for doing that and for sharing it with us. We're really looking forward to jumping into that. Before we do, I want to take just a moment to thank the sponsors that make our work here at Passive House Accelerator possible, starting with our stakeholder partner, NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. Thank you to our founding sponsors, 475 High Performance Building Supply, Ingui Architecture, Partel, Rockwell North America, and Zola Windows. And thank you to our champion sponsors, Buizo, Cascadia Windows and Doors, European Architectural Supply, Facro, Icon Windows and Doors, Intelligent Membranes, LG Air Conditioning Technologies, and Source 2050. And also a big thank you to our sponsor of the week, Lamelux, for making all of our programming possible here at the Accelerator. So, Mary, would you like to say a little bit about how you encountered Oz and his work and the work of the very exciting initiatives that are happening at Barratt London?
Well, I was excited to hear about their initiatives that they're taking, and from Passive House Trust UK. And when I heard about it, I was like, oh, I have to talk to him.
Yeah.
Because it's really such an inspiring story, I think.
Yeah, me too. Let's dive right in then with this interview with Rashid of Barratt London.
Welcome to the Passive House podcast. I'm Mary James, and I'm here with Rashid, Barratt London's head of design. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Mary, and thanks for having me. Yeah, pleasure to be here.
Well, it's very exciting to talk with you, but for many of our listeners, probably Barratt London is not familiar. Could you please give us a little background about Barratt London? What's the focus of its business and how long it's been in existence?
Yeah, sure. So Barratt London is actually a trading name under the umbrella of the Barratt Redrow brand, and there are many divisions across the UK. So we're a national house builder, but the Barratt London is the arm of the Barratt Redrow group that work predominantly within the confines of the London boundary. So Barratt's is I think it was Barratt Redrow, or Barratt originally was established in sort of 1958 by Sir Laurie Barratt. It's since sort of grown to the UK's largest house builder, but Barratt London has been in existence for about 40 years, and we focus really on very large scale, tend to be quite large scale, very complicated mixed use residential-led sort of master plans and placemaking. And we do regeneration across the capital when we're sort of we're not developing in any specific borough more than any other. We're quite agnostic. We'll look at the whole of London, and we typically deliver around 2,000 homes a year. And yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
So that's a big number for a city that I'm sure is mostly built out already and has been for quite a while. So how do you manage to build 2,000 homes a year? So you're doing, or I guess, could you tell me like what the scale of an individual development would be?
Yeah, so to give you, yeah, absolutely. So like to give you a bit of a feel of, perhaps some live sites. So a very important sort of pipeline of sites for us is our partnership agreement, West London partnership with Places for London, which is an arm of TfL. So they
TfL?
Transport for London. So they own and operate all of the transport infrastructure, all the underground stations, etc. So every station has typically got a car park associated with it historically. So there are many stations, and so all of the West London stations, we have a partnership agreement to sort of work our way through sort of identifying opportunities through that partnership and developing those sites out. So just to give you an example, there's three actually I can tell you about. Wembley Park, just right next to Wembley Station, is quite a significant scheme there, about 450 homes. Bollow Lane, again, a very equivalent sized development, a sequence of towers running along the railway in Ealing, and we've just submitted an application for another next to station development in High Barnet. That's about 284 homes, I think. I'm kind of doing this a little bit from memory, but I think that's about right. So that'll give you a bit of a flavour for the sort of schemes that are coming through that partnership agreement, and some really exciting schemes, really high PTEL ratings. But unfortunately, with it comes the constraints of working next to railway infrastructure, things like noise, pollution, and heavily constrained sites with easements and all sorts that you'd expect working next to railway infrastructure. But then we're also doing quite a large redevelopment of called Eastman Village in Harrow. That's about 2,000 homes. In Hayes Village, we've got 1,500 homes, which is the old Nestle factory. So we tend to, people tend to think that London is very dense. It is becoming dense, but we tend to focus on brownfield development, which is reusing old sites and reimagining them. So there's lots of land arrangements that happen and bids that come through various agents that we compete for on the open market, but they tend to be quite significant in scale. Typically, we won't go below sort of 200 homes. Our sweet spot's probably 500 plus, and we always seem to have a few at the sort of 1,000 unit plus scale as well. At the moment, I think we've got 3 of that scale actually actively being built, but more on the drawing board.
Great. And speaking of drawing board, so your role there at Barratt London as head of design, you're very involved in assessing these sites, correct? And can you just talk a little bit about what you do there in your background?
Yeah, sure. So I've been at Barratt London for nearly 2 decades now. So when I first joined, I joined transitioning from an architectural background anyway. So I worked in architectural practice for about a decade, working predominantly on residential schemes for other developers, actually including Barratt London. And so the transition was quite an easy one. I guess you could say like all my training was very much like geared towards in this field of residential, high density residential. So so in the last sort of 20 years, really, I've tended to work very much at the front end of the development cycle. Here we've got rebirth work stages. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those, but the Royal Institute of British Architects sets a number of work stages, and 0 to 3 is the territory in which we sort of assess a site, and get a planning consent. So that process happens within 0 to 3. So my focus tends to be around that area, coming up with a vision for the site, or working with, really, really talented leading architects to, come up with vision, come up with the, really try and understand what the opportunity is on that site, and to get the ultimate planning consent, so that consent can then be delivered by one of 2 Barratt London divisions, one in East and one in West.
Great. And I guess it was last spring, Barratt London made a very strong commitment to Passive House, and I assume you were involved in that. And can you tell us a little bit about how you became aware of Passive House in the first place, and tell us about this pledge that Barratt London made?
Yeah, so I think it all kind of stemmed from about a year and a half's worth of R&D, and it's I would say we didn't sort of set out with the ambition of becoming a Passive House developer. What we were trying to do, what my objective was anyway, was to try and understand what the future building regulations might look like. There's the we are aware that there were going to be a number of changes coming up as part of the Future Home Standard to the building regulations, things tightening up on overheating and ventilation, and there are regulatory things sort of always changing, always, it's almost like a death by 1,000 cuts, because every year there seems to be a new piece of legislation or regulation. In recent years, there's been a lot around fire, particularly since Grenfell. So we've learned that we need to really try and get ahead of all of this sort of stuff and what it really means. So as we were looking at the anticipated regulatory changes under the building regulations, where we found ourselves, business as usual for London really was what I felt was becoming really, really complicated. We were building I guess you could say, what you need to do to get building control approval, and that bar isn't that high, despite within the London plan, the ambition to go beyond building regulations, but the kind of the build quality, almost that bar isn't particularly high. So people are building quite leaky buildings, and poor detailing, poor thermal bridges, and all that kind of stuff. So so we discovered that number one, what can we do to meet future regulatory change without resorting to just keep on adding on more and more plant. So traditionally, the way the industry seems to be doing it is we'll build pretty standard buildings, building regulation compliant buildings, but then we'll bolt on an energy centre, and then now we need to do air source heat pumps, so we'll do that, and then we'll stick on PV, and then oh no, all of a sudden now we've got overheating problems because now we've got all this hot pipe work running up through buildings, and now we need to ventilate all of that. So now we need more plant to kind of ventilate all of the common areas. And all of this is more electric, more money, more complexity, more burden on our consumers. And we are aware of that. And there's certainly been, that's really been felt recently, that where, more and more to deal with overheating, people tend to just bolt on air conditioning now. And all of a sudden it's costing more because we've got to get off-site reinforcement for all of the additional energy that all of these systems use. The bills for our residents have been skyrocketing. Since 2022, there's been a huge surge in energy prices, and that's really being felt right at the at every level. It's not just it's everyone's feeling it. There's definitely a serious fuel poverty agenda at the moment in London, and so yeah, I think it was like this weariness of continually responding to incremental improvements, and how do we do that? So it's not normal actually during the design development phases of our schemes to really get a building physicist involved. They're not a normal part of a design team. So I think I presented, maybe a couple of years ago now, a sort of a paper to the upwards, just to say, look, there's these future home standards coming out. I don't know what it means, but we better get on top of it, because we could get caught out really, really badly. And I think we should get a building physicist involved. And actually, the building physicist was recommended to us through our partnership with Places for London, because they had done some work with them in the past around this sort of subject, and so we were introduced, and he sort of looked at what we were doing, and he's got a huge passive house, 20 years of passive house experience, and that's what he helped us do, was sort of row everything back. So we just stripped everything out of our buildings completely. We said, look, if we started again today with a blank canvas, and we weren't sort of, district heating networks weren't preordained, MVHR wasn't preordained, but PV, all of that stuff. Look, just how do we put it all back together in the most optimum way? And against the backdrop of increasing temperatures, we're getting more and more heat wave conditions. I think that's now an absolute scientific certainty, that these heat waves are going to happen more and more. We've messed up our planet. There is no going back now. And the building regulations that we have in place today don't account for future heat wave conditions. The industry designs to a weather file that's already historic. It's like 2020. And so we said, look, here's the challenge: 2050 weather files. So we can be sure that our customers are going to have a comfortable environment. We don't want it to be commercially disastrous for us. We can't. Homes are expensive enough as it is for consumers. We want to deliver these kind of health and well-being benefits, but without the customer suffering, ultimately paying for something that we should just be doing as standard. And that kind of, when we put all of these constraints in, and we don't want our external walls, there's this kind of misconception of passive house from things like grand designs and all of that it only applies to houses. And as soon as we said passive house, people are like, oh no, your walls are going to get really thick, we're going to super insulate, you're going to have to stick hay in there or whatever. There's all these misconceptions. And we were like, no, we want to build like we know how to build. That's one thing we're quite sure we know how to do. So let's try and put some constraints on this, and how can we do it? And the R&D that ensued from there, we found that if we did the window design just right, and we really dialed up our airtightness, and we got really focused in on form factor and MEP, that actually we could get the solar gains right down, still achieve adequate daylighting, and reduce our heat loads right down to the point where a heat network now becomes that just the heat losses in that network are so great, they would have been able to power our entire development. So what ended up happening was this, if you do all these things just right, and it's a Venn diagram of those three elements that, if you do them right, you hit the bullseye in the middle and you get these extraordinary benefits for our customers. And so we did this research for about a year and a half, this grueling research where we were modeling kind of hypothetical buildings and testing existing buildings and redrawing them, etc. But when we presented our case upwards, I was blown away by how immediate the acceptance of this was. And I think everyone realized that, we are in this place where we're just doing such overly complicated things, and we're achieving all these benefits by simplification. There's something in it, and I think that's what led to this commitment to, this makes sense. Let's roll this out. And once you strip out that complexity, that kind of misconception of it being really expensive starts to melt away. It's actually, it can be commercially viable, particularly for a developer developing at the sort of volumes that we do, because we kind of have that sort of buying power. But hopefully, the motivation is to, raise the bar of build quality. We want to be a leader in sustainable design, and we do want to drive this change through leading by example. So hopefully, by us doing it, it will mean supply chains organize themselves, and more products come to market, the prices come down, and this just becomes, the customer expectation just becomes that this is what a home should be. It should be healthy, it should be temperate, and it should be low bills.
Yeah, and I have to go back to the beginning when you were talking about what we would call transit-oriented developments, that a lot of your developments are next to transit lines. What an advantage for your customers to be in a passive house building and be, insulated from the noise and the pollution of the train lines.
Yeah, absolutely. These homes being sort of triple glazed now, that will definitely be one of the huge benefits of living in a passive house. And I think there's also this misconception that you can't open your windows. Of course you can open your windows, but when at night time, when you want to shut out that noise and air pollution and whatnot, you can, and you will still have you'll have a more pleasant internal environment, because all your air will be filtered. And this health and well-being agenda is rising up the top of future things to really hone in on, because hopefully this will go to some way of driving out mold and damp and all those other problems that you hear about. And and just if our homes can just support healthier lifestyles and and support well-being, then this will be less of a burden in the future on the NHS, and and needing medication and all the rest of it. There's these really sort of long-term benefits that sort of ensue from here. So it's this kind of change in mindset is I've become evangelical about it. Once you get under the skin of it, why are we doing anything else is the question. Yeah,
right. It's so exciting to hear about. And just to be specific, because I don't think we've actually mentioned exactly what the pledge is. Can you tell us? It was as of last May, you said?
Yeah, I think it was in May that UK Reef was. I mean, someone will correct me if I'm wrong on dates, but I'm pretty sure it was May. And so what we what we announced was that all homes that we build going forwards, or no, anything that's being designed from here on in, actually will be designed to, and the intention will be for it to be Passive House certified. And I think we call it low E because it's kind of a blueprint for how we can deliver sustainable homes at scale. So that's the other thing. We don't want to be revisiting every single site differently. We've established a set of principles and that principle really is predicated on no district heating networks and exhaust air heat pumps in each apartment to sort of give every resident energy autonomy and the ability to choose whatever electricity provider that they want. All our homes will be 100% electric, and but that will be for all homes, all multi-story homes, which is predominantly what we do, and that's across all tenures, so all residential.
And there will be, I assume, MVHR for all the units. Each unit, they'll all have ventilation.
Yeah, so the MVHR is sort of a fundamental principle of Passive House, but what we're doing instead is exhaust air heat pump, which is effectively it's got an MVHR unit built into it, but it also has a hot water cylinder, and what it does is it captures all of the waste heat from your apartment and dumps it into the hot water tank. So you're getting free hot water as a result. And conversely, if temperatures get too high, it can throw away the waste heat and provide free cooling. So it can provide up to 8 degrees of cooling. So here is why every home will need cooling. There's no way to get adequate daylighting into a home and have southerly facing homes that don't face some kind of overheating issue. But what we've done is done it in a way where we don't need to do the air conditioning. We control the solar gains in such a way that the gains are so low that this small system can provide free cooling to your home and keep it comfortable.
Wow, that's really great. Yeah. And all electric, you said. So the stove, I assume, is induction, and
yes,
that's great.
Yeah,
I mean, it's and given the uncertainty about extreme weather events, it's providing a level of reassurance and resiliency for all of your homeowners.
100%, and the benefits to the customers are obviously huge, but but for us it's also we've reached the top of Everest with this. There is no better fabric standard that we could do. If we do this, we can just plant it now, and we never have to worry about the building envelope again, or incrementally changing it, or how do we do this new detail because the walls got a bit thicker. We've solved it. That's it. We've got an ultra low energy building, and now we can focus on other things like embodied carbon, because all of a sudden, whereas embodied carbon was a very small part of the whole life carbon of a building, now that we've got the energy use right down, the whole life carbon, the embodied carbon is a huge bit of the whole life carbon now. So now we can tackle materials. We before it was just where do we start? We've solved it. Let's just now sort out the material side of things, and how do we get that better?
It's just really exciting to hear about. And I'm curious. So construction, design is one thing. Constructing to the Passive House standard is another thing. How are you ensuring that your construction teams understand about Passive House?
So we've run a number of CPDs already. So our building physicists have run seminars on things like thermal bridging and airtightness. Those two things are I guess
Sorry, CPDs are
continued professional development.
okay.
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, just stop me. There are loads of acronyms I take for granted, so I should slow down. Yeah, but but effectively what they are sort of 1 hour sessions. They tend to be 1 hour sessions where we cover, where all the how to do thermal bridging well to passive house standard, what's involved in making an airtight building, what kind of products do you need, that kind of thing. So we've sort of built up awareness of it through some sort of training that we can just deliver very quickly, very rapidly. Invite everyone to a Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting, and just go through some slides, and we started to get it into people's awareness. We're also developing a technical guide. So the nice thing is that, albeit we've made the announcement, our first passive homes won't be delivered till 2029, because we've got all of the working drawings and substructure and all of that stuff to get through. So we've got time. So we've started to reorientate all the bits that sit behind the initiative to ensure that everyone knows what they're doing, and we give ourselves the best chance of delivering this consistently throughout the business, which is it can be challenging considering the scale of the business. So we've got a technical note. We're at one of our sites in North Acton. We have a master plan where 2 of the blocks are identical. They're kind of mirrors of one another. So one of them we're building to the consented standard. The other one we are building, and every floor is being tested with different airtight membranes. So we can start to sort of figure out what works best, what's commercially the best, what's the easiest to install, what's the best to train people up on, and and all of that. Once we've done all the blower tests and etc., we'll have a better understanding of which one will get us the airtightness in the most easy, efficient way, and then that will then be fed back into the technical guide, and everyone will sort of absorb that and run with it. So we also do toolbox talks at that same site. We're also doing on-site skills and training where people from various membrane manufacturers will come in, demonstrate their product, show how it should be installed. So we're just getting that training up for all the people actually working on site. And then in parallel to that, our group is primarily leading on this, but we are developing a standard library of details. How we do a balcony junction, how you do a window junction, exactly where the breather membrane goes, where there's the vapor barrier go, etc. So we have repeatable details that we can deploy across our schemes. And of course, the first 1 or 2 are going to be hard. Like we know that. It's not. I mean, even though in my mind I don't have to build things. So in my mind, if we can waterproof a roof, we should be able to airtight a building. The concept is exactly the same. It's the same rigor. But the nice thing about the Passive House certification is the additional Q&A that goes into it. You have a Passive House certifier. So there's this increased Q&A and this kind of ability to sort of fix any discrepancies on the spot and learn from those mistakes immediately before you get into your final testing. So, just even the Passive House standard, just trying to get that certification is a sort of a skill, is a way of learning on the job. So so there are all these things sort of happening in parallel at the moment. But it's not an overnight thing. It will take a few months, but we will. Everything's going to plan at the moment. Touch wood.
Yes, I can imagine that deploying it throughout your company is going to be a huge process and sort of initiate a whole change in the larger marketplace, the larger construction industry and the supply. So that's given how large scale your developments are. So that's great. And I just wondered, at the end of the chain are the customers. How familiar are they with Passive House, do you think? And to what extent? I mean, I understand you're not going to be delivering them until 2029, but I'm just curious what your sense is of how much your customers understand the benefits that they're getting.
Yeah, I think the lay person, perhaps. I mean, if you're not in the industry, you might not know, unless you've watched Grand Designs and you've seen a few, or you might have heard the term, but you don't really know what it means. I mean, I think most people, if you said Passive House, they'd be thinking of like a hobbit home built into the side of a hill or something, and I think it's incumbent on us to demystify that and to start to so this will all start with education of our sales teams, so they can then convey all the the amazing benefits, because I think once they learn that that a key benefit of this is to have a more sustainable home, which then benefits them not just in their bills but opens the door to green mortgage deals, which are typically lower interest rates. They can borrow more money potentially as well, because their running costs are lower. So banks consider that they have more disposable income, so they can lend more. So once people start to learn about that stuff, I think it will catch on, and it'll catch on quite quickly. But I think initially it's incumbent on us to really push the education piece, because it's not just about sort of making them aware so they can make a really informed decision about the kind of home they want to live in. But I mean, they will, I think, once they realize that there is a choice, and would I rather live in a normal building regs compliant home, or would I like to live in a home with all these benefits, I think very, very quickly every developer will start to change their approach, and then it will sort of go wildfire, I hope. Maybe
Yes.
not wildfire, bad bad analogy, but yeah. Hopefully I made my point.
Yeah, maybe it'll spread like wildflowers.
Wildflowers, yeah. Let's go with that. I love
Well,
it. Yeah.
it's been so exciting talking to you. It really is. Is there a name for the development that you're first going to be rolling out? Has that been chosen? The first one that's going to be Passive House?
Yeah, so the two there's two that are going to be Passive House initially, that are sort of well under they're being detailed designed through and will be under construction soon. And the first one is Bollow Lane in Ealing, so that is the one with 400-ish homes, and the second one is High Barnet, which is just under 300 homes. So, but both of those we've committed to doing Passive House. I mean, it does kind of sort of all hinge on it getting approved through the planning process, because it is a bit of a departure from the London plan, which mandates that all developments that are referable should sort of link or make provision to link into a district heating network. So we are sort of departing from that, but which is unusual. But we've been encouraged, because the GLA to date, all of our conversations with them, they've been quite supportive. They understand that ultra low energy buildings connecting into district heating networks is not the best outcome. So we're hopeful that they'll approve these first two schemes so that we can deploy it there, and then hopefully in the next iteration of the London plan they'll embrace this approach more strongly, and then we can really move forwards with a lot more confidence across all our schemes. Right now it's on a we have to we really have to negotiate on a scheme by scheme basis, but we're prepared to do it because we've seen the light, and it's the right thing to do. So that is one of our mantras, to get it right first time, and to do the right thing. So we're trying. So yeah, watch this space.
Right.
Yeah.
And to live in a place where the value of passive houses would be recognized. But
Well, I think the value. So in one point I forgot to mention was the value is actually when our customers realize that the resale value of their homes will be higher because they live in a passive home. I think again that's a very compelling reason for people to choose a passive house as well. So yeah. So sorry, just wanted to touch on the value point.
right, if they'd ever want to leave.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and we will be hearing more about this at the conference, the UK Passive House Conference in Belfast, coming up in October, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. So the building physicist that's been working really closely with us, Joel Callow, he'll be. I don't think he can be there in person, but I think he's definitely dialing in to speak at the conference on our behalf. Unfortunately, I can't be there. It's. I think I mentioned to you just before, but it's my son's birthday, so I have to choose which one I go to. I don't know who to satisfy more, my son or Barratt's, but I feel both a family. But in this instance, my son trumps the event. But I hope it goes really, really well, and it sounds like it's going to be a great event.
Right, and people over here will mostly be dialing in themselves rather than attending in person. So it'll be a great chance to hear more about this. And thank you
Fantastic.
so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And it's so exciting. It's just great to hear such a positive changes that are going on.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I'm as excited as you are. So yeah, that's two of us. Just a million more people to go. So that's.
Excellent. That was Rashid and his conversation with Mary James. Mary, that was awesome. What were some of your key takeaways?
Oh, there was so many. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, the whole idea that you could decide to rethink your design approach, and just simplify, and then realize that passive house is your solution.
Yeah. Yeah.
To both meeting the building regulations now, but anticipating future regulations, plus your customer comfort, with, looking ahead to 2050 weather files. All of it is just
hmm
so forward thinking and inspiring.
Yeah, I felt that way too. And I've heard before practitioners talk about passive house being the logical kind of conclusion to, or arrival point to uh, the journey of building science, learning about building science and thinking about how that it should be properly applied and all that kind of the logical endpoint is passive house. So there's a parallel, but it's a little bit different from this recognition of like, okay, we're stripping away the complexity, and what is the most elegant way to achieve these different goals. To have that be passive houses was a great, obviously it resonates with us, but the fact that it also is making just, I was going to say dollars and cents, but we should say pounds and shillings, I guess. A
Right.
sense, it just makes it, yeah, it's it's the way to build the future, right?
Right. And of the present. And that, as
Yeah,
you
that's
said,
right.
that it's commercially viable for them. I mean, they're not the kind of company that's going to plunge ahead into something that doesn't make sense financially when they're one of the biggest home builders in the UK. And I just really was excited by him calling it just a misconception that it's really expensive.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. I also was struck by this idea that basically it's future proofing. They've future proofed now their decision around how to address the envelope. I mean, he described it as the Everest, or it's like the best envelope performance approach. And there's a real kind of certainty there around that, and then that allows then the focus to shift to embodied carbon and these other elements to creating clean and healthy buildings for people.
Absolutely. It's just, yeah, one and done with the decision making there.
Right, right.
So, and providing the resiliency for their customers looking forward it's a huge deal.
Yeah, definitely. And it's very timely that we are sharing this interview today because this week is a big week. And I would say, I think you agree. In fact, it was, I think your words that Oz and his company are making a massive impact. And this week we are presenting and producing our Reimagine Buildings Massive Impact Online Conference this Friday, September 19th. It's a 4-hour conference. It occurs in the afternoon if you're on the East Coast of North America, and in the morning if you're on the West Coast. It'll be also available recorded. So if those time zones don't work for you, or if the times don't work for you, then you can catch it later. But the Massive Impact Conference is a live online event for building professionals who are ready to lead. And in this 4-hour period, you'll connect with real project leaders, learn what's working now, and leave with the tools, strategy, and peer support to take your work further. And we've been, talking a lot about the idea that we need to be taking a leap, that we cannot in this time, in this moment in history, be satisfied with incremental kind of change. That I think we are called upon to leap, and we're going to be learning from other leaders who have leapt in their work and can help us make the leaps that we need to make to make the impact that I think a lot of us and who are listening and participating in this community really want to do. So we hope that you'll join us for Reimagine Buildings Massive Impact this Friday. So with that, I don't know, Mary, do you have any final parting thoughts to share before we close up?
Well, just that, and after this Friday, for more continued education, if you should check out the UK Passive House Trust Conference, which can be attended either virtually or in person on October 8th. So that's also coming up.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mary. I really appreciate you bringing this to us. And thanks everybody for listening. If you haven't already, please subscribe to Passive House Podcast and write a review. Help us get the word out to new listeners. And we're eager to share the stories like this one with more and more people. Thank you.